I'm entering the 10% of the upper class. Yep, you heard that right. And this is a very, 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 very important video. For whoever is watching this, this is really exciting. I'm really excited for you to watch this. I'm gonna watch this video back from the future. I'm gonna know that this moment was a pivotal moment for me. The joy of making these videos, the joy of capturing these moments is I can capture how I'm thinking. I can capture how my mind is operating, how my thoughts are thinking. And then what I can do is in the future, I can look back at those moments such as this right now and say, well, that's why I got to where I am today. And that's how I'm entering into the 10%. I'm becoming rich. Like, I'm looking to create generational wealth. I'm looking to create wealth that can change people's lives beyond mine, can change my family's lives, can change my friends' lives, can change generational lives. Lives beyond me once I'm gone. I'm looking to change lives after I leave this place. You know someone by the name of Andrew Carnegie? Whoever has come after that guy and is part of that guy's family, their lives are completely changed. So that's my role that I'm taking on, and I'm choosing to. I think it's fun. I want to play a big game, and that's something I'm doing right now. So what am I talking about? Well, I've come to realize that the rich play a different game. These are concepts and things that I've never learned, I've not been taught, and I've not been around people that have taught me these laws. Some of them are universal laws, and then some of them are laws from the rich. One of the things you got to do is you got to financially educate yourself. Now, I'm not saying that these books are truth, and I'm not saying that all of what I'm reading in here is just going to get me a free ticket. No, there's a concept of learning. You have to learn, but then you have to implement. And so I think it was Warren Buffett that said, the more you learn, the more you earn. So this book came to me recently, Why the Rich Are Getting Richer. So I'm not sure what your viewpoint is on being rich. I'm not sure if you are rich. If you are, you probably have a pretty good viewpoint on being rich. And if you're not, you may or may not have probably not so positive of a viewpoint. But I remember I'm going through a course right now, and one of the slides said, within the money mindset, what is your viewpoint on rich people? What do you think? And I'm going to ask you this right now. What do you think of a rich person? Are they a stealer? Do they steal to get their way? Do they cheat to get their way there? Are they bad people? Is that your viewpoint? Maybe. And maybe they did even. But on the other side, maybe they're a value-driven, articulate, well-thought-out thinker that seeks ways to add value to people and solve their problems. Well, that's me. That's the kind of rich person I'm becoming. I want to help you. I want to solve your problems. So I got to find complex problems and find easier ways to do them and solve them. And part of that is through understanding how taxes work. I just was part of a crypto mastermind on Wednesday, and what they were talking about is if you don't plan to pay taxes, or if you don't plan to understand taxes, you're basically not planning to be rich. And we're not just talking rich here, we're talking like rich, you know, like the 10% class. So you gotta understand taxes. The other thing you gotta understand is understanding how corporations work. This is just the beginning. These are just the tickets to the beginning. But the rich understand how to leverage debt and taxes. So for the most part, debt is very dangerous. Personal debt is very dangerous. Credit is good. So do you know that Donald Trump says that he loves debt? Rich people love debt. They love debt. So what I want to do now is, what I'm taught, or what I've been reading, is that we want to understand history. And if we can understand history, we can understand how things move. We can understand. So right now, for example, in the corona right now, or whatever we're in, a lot of people look at this time as like it's a horrible time, there's no opportunity. But there's more opportunity than ever right now. It's just, are you at a clairvoyance space of yourself? Do you have the clarity to see the opportunity right now? Well, if you can look at history and understand the history of money and understand how markets work and start financially educating yourself, and I'm at the beginning of this. That is why I'm hosting this video right now, is because I've got the ticket. I'm starting to understand things at a higher level, and I'm going, oh my God, I gotta learn this stuff. If I want to go play with the big boys, I gotta learn this stuff. Just like I gotta learn to speak to camera, I gotta learn how to public speak. All these are skills that I'm developing so that I can be a high value human on this planet and add a lot of value to a lot of different people. You know, there's not one point of me or one part of me that's saying, how can I get? I need. I'm like, no, how can I educate myself? How can I find ways to do something effectively and find loopholes, which means ways that you can leverage debt, ways that you can leverage the tax system so that you can benefit from it. And what do you benefit from? Well, if you're running a large business, then the people under you are also going to benefit. So something I found out was interesting from this book is there's 4 quadrants of people on the tax system. There's employees, there's self-employed, there's big business, and there's investors. Now, I never understood this before, or the differences before, but do you know that employees get taxed at 40%? Solo entrepreneurs get taxed at 60%. Big business gets taxed at 20%, and investors get taxed at basically at 0 or somewhere very small. Now, do you know why big businesses and investors get taxed less? Because they're basically partnering with the government. I mean, this is what I'm reading. I don't know if it's 100% true. It's just, this is the first entry point to this, but from what I'm reading, it makes, and I'm critically thinking about it as well, but from thinking about it, it seems that it makes sense. But what they're saying is essentially the government's giving breaks to big businesses because big businesses are creating jobs, they're creating money flow in the economy, and they're creating a service, they're creating products and helping out the economy flow. So this is, I guess, capitalism in some way or form, but I never started to really understand capitalism until now. I never really tuned into it, but it's a word I've constantly heard. But as I dive deeper, it's like, well, where did I hear capitalism from? Where did I hear all these terminologies from? It was from broke people. It's from poor people. So obviously they're having a negative viewpoint on capitalism. But what if you could, let's say, for example, I'm just gonna say hypothetically, but let's say that I start up a modern day hospital and I start up like a retreat center that's helping people heal. And of course, you would logically think, yeah, that person should get a tax break, that business. Plus, I'm employing a bunch of people. I'm creating a bunch of jobs, a bunch of opportunities, while providing an amazing service. Yeah, I would say that is under a different tax jurisdiction, or whatever that word is. You can see I'm just slowly beginning to learn the words. And so something I learned about this is the financial history. So let's go into a little bit of a financial history right now. So the first kind of pivotal moment from this book, at least what it says financially, was in 1913. Now in 1913, it was when the Fed was created and the IRS. So before that moment, there was no such thing as taxes, especially in America. America was a tax-free economy. And at that point, the Fed and the IRS were created to fund the war, World War I. And from my understanding, from my research, World War I was created around oil. There was this guy named Fernando something got assassinated, and this was linked to England, and this is something to do with the oil, and this is what created the First World War. The next important date was the 1929, which is the Depression, what happened within the Depression. And then the next important date was 1944, and it's skipping me right now. Let me come back to it. I'm sure I can find it right in here. Oh, yes. In 1944, we did this thing called the gold standard, where we put our money as well. I'm saying we. I'm a Canadian, but in the U.S. put the U.S. dollar on the gold standard. So that means that one U.S. standard was priced against gold. So this was a really important year. So this is when the U.S. dollar became really strong. And then the next important date was 1971, where President Nixon actually took the US dollar off the gold standard. And this is where inflation started. This is where the Fed started printing a bunch of money. This is basically the start of the crash of the American economy. And so from that moment on, then they created this thing in 1974 called Nixon did I kind of want to research Nixon because it sounds like he did like a lot of interesting business moves. Whether they're good or bad, I'm not sure, but be interesting to research him. But in 1974, what they did is they created this thing called the petrodollar. So America had an alliance with Saudi Arabia that you could only trade through US dollar. And so this was a big, since all wars have been essentially created around oil, because that was basically our biggest currency or our biggest exchange. And so in 1974, there's this thing called the petrodollar, and the dollar was basically backed by the U.S., or the petrodollar was basically traded through the U.S. And then we had the crash in '87, and then in the year 2000 was the dot-com crash, and then in 2007, which this is really interesting. If you're watching this far, thank you very much, but I would really recommend you to watch the movie The Big Short. They do this, I wasn't really present to the 2008 economy crash. I was a little bit too young and too goofy at that moment of my life to really tune into what was happening in the planet. But if you go back and watch this movie called The Big Short, it's an incredible movie, and it talks about this time. And in 2007 was the year where subprimes crashed. Now, if you don't know what subprimes are, I'm going to try to do my best to explain it. Essentially, they're loans, and they're mortgage loans. So basically, if you go to a bank right now, or a bank at any point, you have to basically want to get a credit card or want to get a line of credit, you have to approve for it. And there's certain variables that allow you to approve for these loans. And also, subprimes at the time were a bunch of mutual funds. Now, I would definitely recommend researching this because my explanation, obviously it's very complex, so you can see even my ability to articulate it is quite limited. But essentially what they are, and I'm going to try to do my best, is subprimes are based with bonds and mutual funds. And what mutual funds is basically a bunch of bonds put together in one basket. But there's different levels to these bonds, and essentially subprimes were created, and they were basically how they put it in simple terms. You're buying shit. That's how they said it. 90% of the mutual bonds in a subprime were shit. They're not worth any money. They're not making any interest, but people were investing in them. So Warren Buffett created this company called Moody, and Moody was one of the companies that sold subprimes actually. And subprimes were basically sold to low-income people that they basically, it was a no exit. You couldn't get away from what the loan that you received. You could apply for the loan, but the interest rates were crazy, and the loan that you applied for was worth basically nothing. And so they're called CDOs, and if you watch the movie The Big Short, they'll go over it. And these CDOs were basically worth nothing. And this is where the rich get a bad name for themselves, is because obviously they're taking advantage of people that don't understand. And so these subprimes is what led to the real estate crash. So basically people were using subprimes to get mortgage loans to buy houses. And these mortgage loans were worth nothing. And the people that were selling these mortgage loans were getting massive profits. Like the profits were like $10,000 to sell it to some like person, because basically if you sell it to some vulnerable human, they're going to be locked in on this loan, and the interest rates are incredibly high that they'll never be able to pay them back, and that what they basically purchased is worth nothing. And so people were buying these big houses and basically had no credit, and they were able to purchase big houses. But what this did is basically inflated the market and made the market crash. And I think it was like something like 6 million people got evicted from their places and foreclosed their homes, which is obviously really not great. But yeah, I definitely recommend go watching that movie because they explain it really well. But essentially, educate yourself. This is what I'm learning. Educate yourself. Don't just take someone's word for what they say. Don't just take my word. Don't just take this book's word. Like, go educate yourself. So that was an important year. Was the crash of 2008, was the housing crash. So now that we have an education on our history, we can now see what's happening moving forward. And moving forward, it's going to get really interesting. That's why literally, if you're watching this, I hope you're watching this right now. Educate yourself. Like, just educate yourself. This is your leverage point. The rich love taxes and they love debt. Why is that? There's this saying that I just read in this book. The rich own nothing but control everything. It's like, whoa, that's a deep statement. The rich own everything, or the rich own nothing but they control everything. What that means is that they're not liable for their corporations. So what I'm learning is that you want to create a corporate entity that doesn't involve your assets. And assets are what the rich acquire. They acquire assets. They don't acquire liability. That's what the middle class and poor acquire. They acquire liability. They think this is kind of a bunk. But from my education, they think that a house is an asset. But a house, if you're living in it, is a liability. So you want to acquire assets. And essentially, you also want to figure out the tax system on these assets. So I want to end this video with some principles from what I learned from the rich. And I see myself moving forward as like a Robin Hood, in an essence where I come from nothing, and I'm going to become everything. And my goal on this journey is to be as vulnerable as possible, share as much as possible, document as much as possible, A, to help you, but B, to also come back and reference these moments of my life, and I can watch this video back and be like, wow, that's what I was doing. Or show you in the future being like, go watch that video. It's like, this just didn't come out of nowhere. Like, I'm ferociously learning right now. I'm reading like a madman. And I still don't understand all this stuff, so that's why I'm educating myself. So the first principle is that rich don't work for money. That's the first principle. Like, the rich don't work for money. They have their money working for them. How good does that sound? That's where you want to end. So think about this. If you enter into the investor quadrant, you pay less taxes and you don't have to work. You have to work for your money. Your money works for you. That's a basic principle. Second one, savers are losers. So Robert Kiyosaki talks about how savers are losers. And the reason is back in the day when you used to save your money in a bank, let's say you put $1 million back in the 1970 on your money, you would make a 15% interest on your money. And so at the end of the year, you would make $150,000 on $1 million. And in 1970, that's a lot of money. Plus, you can live off $150,000 in 1970. But in this day and age, your interest of saving money on $1 million is like 1.5%. And even some places in the world are taxing you now to save your money. So just saving money in a bank account, saving money for retirement is just not, it's not the way to go. You want to put your money into assets, is what I'm learning. I'm not sure. I will educate myself further and speak with conviction through experience, because right now I'm just speaking through education, through book learning. The debt makes rich richer. What? Not personal debt. Debt on assets. Debt when you're acquiring assets make the rich richer. Taxes make the rich richer. The rich love taxes because they understand the system. The way we don't like taxes because we don't understand the tax system. Of course, you don't like paying 40% taxes. But if you know how to pay 13% taxes, well, the difference when you're making like $6 million, the difference between 40% and 20% is a big difference. It's a lot of savings. So understand taxes. The fifth one, mistakes make the rich richer. So we've been led to believe through the school system that failing's bad, and if we get graded on our mistakes, right? So if you think about it on a test, they focus on your mistakes, but they don't focus on what you did right. And that's what we want to do when we're becoming and understanding these things, is learning from our mistakes, not letting them slow us down, not letting them stop us, taking them as a learning lesson. Sometimes very expensive, sometimes very emotional, and sometimes physically exhausting. But mistakes make the rich richer. Crashes. Oh my God, this is an interesting one too. Crashes make the rich richer. I mean, it kind of seems obvious, right? Buy low, sell high. But what happens is the rich basically can see and anticipate what the market's going to do to a certain extent, and they prepare themselves. They prepare themselves with their assets, they prepare themselves with their taxes, and they prepare themselves with their debt, so that when a crash comes, they can buy up everything. And now they buy up everything, and it's basically everything goes on sale. They have equity, or they have capital to invest into whatever assets. Let's say real estate. When the real estate crashed, all these banks and all these rich people started acquiring all these houses, and now you can be positioned really well. So the rich love crashes. This is really interesting. Your words become flesh. Your words become flesh. So think about all the words that I'm expressing right now. And I want to read actually this part of it. Employees always use these words: job security, steady paycheck, pay raise, medical plan, benefits, paid vacation, and overtime. Entrepreneurs don't use these words. Entrepreneurs must be smart enough to provide those words for their employees. That requires financial education. Gotta educate yourself. It depends what kind of quadrant you want to live in. And by the way, there's no quadrant better than the other. There's just different lifestyles, different benefits, and different ways of being and thinking in each quadrant. So it's really you gotta learn what works for you. Number 8, become a student. Oh, I love this one. Become a student of subjects schools do not think are important. This is really interesting. What I'm learning right now, what I'm expressing, what school system teaches this? You know why? School systems are training us to be factory workers. They're training us to be employees. They're not training us to critically think. They're not really training us to add value to even society. They're training us to add value to corporations. So, choose your game. Now, it doesn't mean that this is the easy road. Quite frankly, it's more liability and more risk, but if you educate yourself, it's the good life. So here, right now, in this very moment, what is it? December something, it's like December 10th. Right now I'm filming this. This is my ticket. This is my ticket to the 10%. I'm joining the 10%. And I'm becoming, and I am, man, I'm mentally well. I'm mentally rich. I'm mentally and physically and emotionally and spiritually and financially rich. And I am not afraid of it. And I'm not ashamed of it. Because you know why? I know where I came from, and I know my beginnings. And I know what it takes to get to where I'm going. Not fully. Like, I can't fully see what's ahead of me, but I know what it takes, and it takes a lot of focus and a lot of discipline. So I am not ashamed of getting to where I'm going because of the work I'm putting in. Now, I'm not going to degrade you or degrade another human being for their positions, but if you want to get here, I have no problem sharing what I understand. And that's why I'm sharing this video. Hopefully I inspired you. Hopefully you're maybe looking at your position. You're maybe seeing the opportunities right now rather than focusing on what the news is talking about right now. It's a really interesting time on our planet. So a lot of shifts are happening, a lot of opportunities are being created, so choose what you want to focus on. And for me, I'm choosing on getting rich. And I have no shame of it, because I'm told, I haven't fully experienced it, but money just makes more of who you are. And I know right now that there's a guy that I want to invest in his English classes, there's charities I want to create, there's lifestyles that I want to live, there's family members that I want to help, all these types of things that I want to do with my money. And I know that the more of a resource I become, the more I can provide a positive impact on people's lives and the planet. And so I really like what Ricky Gervais says, what is a good life? And a good life is doing work you love, having a committed relationship, and making a difference. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm learning to make a difference. So this was probably my longest video I've ever made on any of these subjects, but this is such an important subject. I wanted to really share this one. So take care and have a wonderful day.